Okay, well on.
Okay, and welcome to Mythical Monster Investigations, where we are again continuing our special deep dive into angels, mythology, history, and reality, part 2, which I don't know how many parts are going to be, but this is going to be quite a while. And I know I said we're going to try to make each part about an hour long, but honestly, this section is better not broken up. So we're just going to go through it and it'll take as long as it takes. Hopefully, that is not the norm, but I make no promises. So, once again, I am your host, Archimage, joined with my co hosts.
Shadow Fox.
And we are going to be continuing with where we left off from last time, which, if I remember correctly, last time, Zed went over various forms of angels in modern media, taking a look at ones from different video games and Digimon, right?
Yeah, Digimon, Persona. Technically, we have angels in terms of more recent modern culture with like the Lucifer show and Supernatural. I know had several.
Yes. And that's a good way to start this one because we're going to be taking a look at this is where we start taking a look at angels and how they really are. Now, again, when it comes to biblical canon, the Bible holds very little importance to both the organizational structure of angels and really to the angels themselves, as it is about the Judeo Christian people. In fact, contrary to popular belief, only two angels are directly named, with a third disputed, which we will talk about later on. Now, since they are important enough to be named, these angels seem like an ideal place to begin dissecting the hints of the angel hierarchy. And what better place to begin with one of the most sorry, let me try that again. What better place to begin than with one of the most well-known angels, the archangel Michael? Now, Michael is mentioned by name a total of 5 times in the Bible, in the book of Daniel, in the book of Jude, and Revelation. There are others that some believe refer to Michael, but it's unclear and he's not directly named. Now, the most notable thing about Michael is his title of archangel. The word arch, roughly translating to chief or chieftain, denoting some form of superiority to other angels, at least as far as the Bible's concerned, although it doesn't mention what exactly that superiority may be. Other titles the Bible gives him, such as Prince of Princes and Chief Prince, again suggest a high level importance. Now, contrary to popular belief, Michael is the only angel to be classified as an archangel. Other so called archangels, such as Raphael and Uriel, come from non canon sources, as well as other religions, which we will touch on later. Now, as to what being an archangel means, we can only infer from the literal handful of hints given. The Bible suggests that Michael is the leader of the heavenly armies and primary protector of the Lord's people. He is the one sent to contest with the devil over the body of Moses and will be the one to fight Satan in the final conflict, suggesting that Michael is sent to get things done. He shows up with a goal and he carries it out, which makes sense for a warrior. This viewpoint is shared by the majority, if not all, religions, which is actually a bit strange, as there are clearly armies of angels. So, by definition, Michael cannot be the only warrior. So, how did that become his identity? Well, first we know from scripture that not all angels are warriors, which we again will look into greater detail later on in this series. Now, returning to Michael, he's the first mentioned in the book of Daniel, verse 10:13, implying that according to biblical canon, the first to mention Michael's name, as well as to note his importance, was another angel. So, Daniel 10:13, which is on screen now. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Now, again, these are various translations, but this is where he's first denoted as archangel in other verses. Now, what do you guys take from this, especially from this verse?
Um, it's the fact that the chief of princes is a very unique title
I agree.
that almost implies some type of nobility or royalty to the hierarchy of angels or heaven. To use the word princes.
Yeah, and based on what we're going to see later on, that might be the case. Because again, not all angels are warriors, and as we'll see, some of the hierarchy might not involve warriors at all.
Is that a King James version or New International?
I believe that's New International.
I kind of want to check.
No worries, you're free. Like I said, you guys, there is feel free to dispute. And Zed, being the more non-religious one, what do you think of this statement while he's fact checking me?
I'm gonna be honest. I got nothing. I mean, I see a lot of it, and I can understand some of the messages in certain Bible verses. Some of these I just don't get with what they're saying.
Yeah, no, that's why they have several Bibles with translations on the side so people can understand it.
That's New Internet.
Right.
I can't look because I'm currently showing the thing because I want to know.
I mean,
Oh, go for it.
no, I completely lost my train of thought.
Ah, sorry.
No, you're good.
No, what I was getting at was I wanted to find out what the King James translation, because I'm not fact checking you, I'm fact checking the translation, because the one thing I do know about with biblical thing is it's all this is always translated from with Old Testament stuff is always translated from Judaism to a bunch of other languages and then ultimately to English, essentially.
You mean from Hebrew?
Oh, sorry, Hebrew. Sorry, Hebrew. Yes.
Yeah, Hebrew, Aramaic, like it. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And my understanding was with Hebrew, it's always a lot of their words have alternate meanings, and I know
Yes.
that cause a lot of mistranslation issues and a lot of interpretation issues when interpreting verses of the Bible. And I'm wondering if this is one of those situations.
No, that's what a lot of people understand. That's why we get very of the Bible, because even though technically all of them say the same thing, the interpretation comes with what exactly the words mean. Now, some it's fairly easy because the words only have like one or two or three meanings, so it's pretty. You can kind of get from the context what it means. But here, chief princes, other things. Basically, it's definitely denoting that Michael has some kind of title, showing again some form of superiority or or if you prefer, which is what we're looking at, some form of hierarchy within this aspect of heavenly armies. Because again, in another verse, Michael is definitely stated to be a commander of the heavenly armies
Yeah.
and a protector.
Okay. Here we go. Because I'm looking at now, I'm gonna look through multiple different translation. Holy Christian, Chief Princes, um, New International, Chief Princes, Chief Princes, Chief Princes,
Maybe he's not
Chief
named
Princes,
as an archangel in this.
Chief Princes. Um, Living Translation. That's a very modern translation. Um, Complete Jewish Bible. Let's see about this one. Chief Princess. Oh, jeez. Okay, everyone referred to him as Chief Princess. Okay, Hebrew name
Oh,
version.
I'm sorry. He's referred to as the archangel in Jude 1:9. I apologize. That's my bad. I got the verses mixed up.
Yeah, no, well, that's the thing. In some translation, they specifically refer to him as Archangel in Daniel 10. But
Yeah.
I didn't mention those because those were very, very like modernized translations. So I didn't even.
Yeah,
Basically,
no,
I'm
I'm
looking
sorry.
through a bunch of translations just for this one, and it's
Yes, I apologize. It's from Jude 1:9 where Michael is specifically fighting the devil with Moses that he's denoted as Archangel Michael. I apologize.
all of them referred to his title as Chief Princess. There's no
Yes.
alternate translation or another
Yeah.
interpretation that I can easily
Huh.
find on hand for this without actually pulling up a Hebrew version of Daniel 10:13, which I wouldn't be able
And
to translate. So
I've actually done that for this one. Believe it or not, it's pretty much similar. So it probably is also Chief Princes.
that's
Like when we get this much in all various versions, that means that they were very clear that yeah, this is Chief Princes. So again, it's Jude 1:9 that he's denoted as Archangel, not this. This is when he's first mentioned to have high importance. My bad, I mixed them up.
it's just Chief Princess for a title.
It is a very interesting title. That's kind of getting me too.
That's really getting to me because because they specifically referring to a prince of Persia. So, they're clearly, let's say you were taking this just out of a religious context and just a grammatical context. They're setting a precedent of prince being a title of rank in the
Yes.
Persian kingdom.
Yeah.
And princes generally, by definition refer to the son or the not always the son, but technically can be technically an heir to a king or to a kingdom. So a chief prince will imply he's one of the almost like if this person is missing, he would be kind of next in line to take charge type deal.
Yes, hence why Michael is given so much importance because if he is an angel, that would almost imply that he's next in line to God, which is interesting to say the least.
Yeah, I never like I may have read this, but I've never thought
Really
about it
thought
in
about it.
detail because yeah, that race I
It's
would
also
never.
funny to think, like, again, this verse says that this is an angel talking about him. So apparently, angels were able to be detained for 21 days by a prince of Persia. So that's interesting, which I also find kind of strange.
Was
But
it the angel who was detained, or was the angel going after the Prince of Persia? Because they say, but the Prince of Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days.
well, either way, a Persian prince can resist an angel for 21 days.
What's the context? Now, give me a second. What's the context of this? Why are we having a? Wait a minute. Now we're having like a
If I remember the context properly, this is an angel talking about Michael, talking to Daniel.
Daniel Fishing of Maine is the title of the chapter 10. Currently, this is the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia.
Sounds correct.
Well, no, that's from I'm reading out of the scripture. just
Yeah,
for that one.
no, based on yeah. Sorry, I was being facetious.
Just okay, no, just for the people who think I'm just pulling this out my.
No,
No,
no, no.
I
I
am
was being
actually looking
facetious. No,
through a
I know you're
Bible,
actually.
reading through this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Daniel's having a conversation with an angel. Okay, this is something about him. I'm trying to surmise it, but it seems like it's something about him having to meet before or do something in Persia, and he's worried about it, and the angel is kind of reassuring him.
Yes. Well, remember, Daniel's the one who got thrown to the lions, so he goes through quite a bit.
Yes. Okay. And yeah, there's in the rest of the chapter is just the angel reassuring him. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so all interesting. And yeah, so as you can tell, this is going to be interesting. Now, the other verses that speak of Michael protecting of God's people and combating Satan. So, without a doubt, Michael is linked to confrontation and protection, which in modern day can especially be seen with Catholicism, as Saint Michael is the patron saint of police, soldiers, as well as bankers and grocers, oddly enough. I just want to make sure that went through. He's also bankers and grocers. That
Oh.
went through, right?
Well,
Okay.
now that does make sense. He's a chief prince. He's a chief of princes. So,
Actually, believe it or not, that has to do with scales. Because he has scales, and because bankers and grocers would measure things out, scale them. Banks, using scales to measure various important metals. It's a stretch to say the least, and it would seem that a verse association has granted him the title of warrior. Not to mention, Michael is the only angel named to fight against Satan, because his name certainly doesn't suggest a warrior. The name Michael, of course, of Hebrew origin, means who is like God, specifically with a question mark, or gift from God. And I don't know, what do you guys take from that? Like specifically, it's who is like God. It's a question mark. It's not he. Michael's name is not who is like God. That's something a lot of people get wrong. His name is specifically for who is is more of for who is like God, as if you're Hamlet with holding a skull asking a question.
I've heard more of the definition of gift from God.
Gift from God also works, but a
The-
lot of people, especially people who are named Michael, like to say who is like God. I can't imagine why.
Oh, see, for me, a lot of the people I met named Michael, they like the gift from God.
Really,
And
I've only met the opposite.
I see. I only met the opposite because most of
Huh.
them, their parents named them, and usually it's because they saw the child as a gift from God.
Oh. Huh. I wonder if I should think different. Damn, I wonder how the parents of the ones who named my friends saw their kids. Damn.
So I think a lot of that may have been the parent because that's have always been my understanding was because those types of names generally the alternate meaning is like gift from God or a gift of. So I always find that whenever parents name their kids something religious, it's because they're trying to pay homage to God. So they're giving it a name similar to a a famous or a significant person of that of the Bible that hold meaning to them or just in general. So I met a lot of Michaels in my life, and most of the time it seemed their parents named them because it directly translated to one of the translation was gift from God. That's why I
Yeah.
knew that one.
Got it. I guess gift of God does kind of make sense, especially since Michael is, like we said, Michael's the warrior. He's the confrontation. He comes to protect. He is noted in passages as being the protector of God's chosen people. So having someone who will protect you and fight your battles for you is definitely a gift from all things. So, though, again, his name doesn't directly translate to warrior or anything. So
No.
I guess I don't know. I don't really know what to take from the name, I guess. Just it happens to be Michael.
Well, hang on. I got into. I remember I got really big at one point into looking up the definition of names.
Yeah, I did too. But I don't see how that one's gonna help because again, this is what Michael means, unless it's gotten some other interpretation. Which, if it's from Urban Dictionary, do not read it because Urban
No,
Dictionary
no,
it's
no.
very strange with the definitions.
who is
And I'm
like
not trying to get demonetized on this.
no, I'm using specifically if people want to double check. I use behindthename.com because it
Ah,
usually give you not only the meaning behind the name, they usually do break it down. So I was looking for I remember Michael had a huge breakdown for that page because it's a very well known name. And I let's see, they started breaking into pieces of it, the Hebrewic pieces of it, and they go into detail where each part mean like, and then another part mean God. Um, they talk about archangel. They directly refer to 12:1 as, huh? Was he named? Was he named Protector of Israel?
yes.
Okay, I didn't realize he was named Protector of Israel, especially in that
Yeah, no, he
chapter.
is named Protector of Israel. One of the 5 times that he's mentioned. Like I said, there's a reason. Again, Michael is the big commentator. I mean, Protector. That's why police and soldiers make sense. Michael is supposed to be the protecting angel, which is why a lot of people will pray to him, which is actually a big, huge no-no. You do not pray to angels. The Bible's actually really clear about that.
Yeah, but you shouldn't pray to a lot of things. I seem to
Yeah.
recall Catholicism have a big problem about that.
No, Catholicism has a huge problem with this, which for those of you watching on YouTube, these are 2 different Catholicism medals of Michael that many people carry around with them, and it will actually hold to pray for strength and everything else, which I get it. But again, you are not supposed to pray to angels. This is why Catholicism gets a bad name for Christianity in
Idols.
general, is because they do kind of fall into that idol thing quite a bit. I don't know if they mean to, but that's what happens.
My understanding, and Catholic, I'm sure Catholic people, if we get any comments, can correct me. But my understanding from talking to Catholics was that they are supposed that it's supposed to be paying honor to them. They're not supposed to be worshiping them. They're supposed to just be honoring them. Like there's supposed to be a fine line between honor and worship, and
Yeah,
it
I
seemed
don't know.
like a lot of people
Sometimes,
cross that line sometime.
yeah, that's my thing. Is that a lot of times it seems like that line's kind of crossed, but take them the word. Find anything interesting with the Michael, or
No,
just
it's
like,
literally everything you
yeah,
said.
yeah, like a thought. But okay. So bottom line, it's definitely up for interpretation. But regardless, what can be said is Michael is a high-ranking member of the heavenly hosts and geared more towards physical conflict. Yet, as previously mentioned, not all angels seem to be associated with combat. And actually, a good example of this is a look at our second angel to be named in biblical canon, and that would be the angel Gabriel. As far as fame, Gabriel definitely can claim to rival, or in some faiths, actually surpass that of Michael. Now, the first thing to note when talking about Gabriel is that, in spite of popular belief, the Bible never denotes Gabriel as an archangel. That misconception originates in other non canon sources. Yet, the mistake is understandable when considering the information we are given in reference to Gabriel. Of course, the most important account the Bible offers, and the reason Gabriel is known at all, is for the deliverance of the messages of the births of John the Baptist and the Messiah Jesus of Nazareth, as told in Daniel 8:16 and Daniel 9:12 and Luke 11:20, 1 through 26 through 38, making him the second most mentioned angel in the Bible. Considering the only other a considering the only other angel named, that being Michael, is denoted as archangel, it's understandable why a similar assumption would be made in regard to Gabriel. Yet, what the Bible does make clear is that Gabriel is one of God's most important, if not most trusted angels, for 2 reasons. First, he was the one to announce the coming Messiah, which the Jewish people had been waiting for centuries on end, some still waiting to this day. And and the launch of the Christian faith, which, from its humble beginnings, has become one of the three largest religions in the world. Second, while his rank is unclear, Luke 1:19 makes it clear that Gabriel stands in the presence of God, which, interesting enough, when you consider it, because it may imply that not all angels do stand in the presence of God. What do you guys think about that? Huh?
No, I'm still looking through the verses.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I put up
Yeah.
a long verse in there. But yeah, they do say Gabriel does imply that he stands in the presence of God, and that's why it's highly denoted. So I found that interesting because what I was wondering is like, does that actually imply that not all angels do stand in the presence of God? I mean, obviously the ones who have fallen don't, but perhaps not all the angels do stand in the presence of God. Maybe that's the part of the hierarchy is angels that are closer to God or actually stand in his presence more. Or who knows, maybe it's a power thing.
I
Like the
mean,
angels draw more power the longer they are in connection with God. I'm not
yeah.
sure. Like there's no wrong answers in this, so feel free to throw out any theories.
Well, to be fair, well, because I think it's just Michael and Gabriel are the two only named angels
Yes,
in
with
the Bible.
there is a third, but that's disputed, and again, we're gonna look at that later.
But despite them being the only two named angels, we know for a fact there are multiple accounts of angels just because of
Yes.
various testaments of it. So, what I find interesting is because I'm still trying to read through that chapter, but if I'm not mistaken, um, Gabriel's the one, and God said Gabriel make this man. Gabriel was called out in this one. What I was getting at is basically, Gabriel, because I was trying to see if Gabriel was directly talking to Daniel. Is what I was trying to look through. Because I see his name dropped, but I was trying to see if he directly spoke with Daniel.
No, he did directly speak to Daniel, and that's also something I'm going to mention a bit more.
Because,
But that will get a little later on to the slide. But do you have anything specifically about angels being in the presence? Because that we can touch on a bit later.
well, what I was thinking of was the only other time I could think of was the one that came to mind was um, Abraham being told, because if I'm not mistaken, Abraham and Sarah was told by an angel that they would that she would get pregnant.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember if they gave any direct mention of being told this directly from God, or whether they just would. But I don't believe there was any mention. I think they just said we are delivering a message from our Lord that you'll have a child. The only other thing I can think of, I'm trying to think if during the time with Moses in Exodus, during the burning bush, was there any encounter with angel?
No.
No, that was directly God speaking through the
Yeah.
burning bush.
Yeah. The only angel that really appears in Moses is the angel of death.
Yeah, and we don't see him, we just see his handiwork.
Pretty much.
Well, I guess that is something to mention because we often forget that the the final plague to the Egyptian is technically an angel delivering God's wrath unto the firstborn,
Yes.
which does beg the question: where would that angel fall? Because then again, we've seen angels do similar things with the angels who met with, I believe, was it oh, am I getting this wrong? Abraham brother, was it Saul or the one with Sodom and Gomorrah?
Oh, Lot.
Lot. Sorry, Lot. We saw something similar with angel coming down to Sodom and Gomorrah, and actually defeating a whole, well, not blindly, a whole crowd full of people.
No, they did blind a crowd full of people. They straight up blinded a crowd full of people. But that was after they were kind of testing Lot.
Yes. I
But,
guess what I'm trying to figure out is I'm still kind of thinking about this chief princess thing. Well, I never thought chief princess before, and that's a very unique title to be thrown around in the Bible. And from what I can look up, that's only ever used in the Bible to refer in that instant to Michael.
Yes.
That's like a
Hence
title.
why he's very important.
Yeah, that's a title that is only mentioned one time, and that's for Michael.
Yes.
And I was looking up just chief princess in general, and that title only seemed to be tied with Michael outside of the Bible as well.
Yes.
Because I thought maybe there's some type of culture or religion that used the terminology of chief princess, but there's really
No.
not.
No, there is not. That title is specifically for Michael.
And it gets me because princess doesn't directly have to refer to a direct heir. Because what I'm now thinking of is a little diversion. The Chinese, I think it's the dynasty right after the Han dynasty. I think it's the Jin or I think it's Jin dynasty. I may be wrong. But it's the time period called the Nine Princes. Not because there was 9 sons or 9 heirs to the emperor, but because there was 9 high-ranking nobles who was indirect, well, cousins, relate in terms of relation to
Yeah, no,
the
I know what you
royal
mean.
line, but they
Believe it
were
or not,
given
that
the
is
title of princes because of how highly ranking they was.
yeah, and that's medieval culture also had some of that too.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking of when they say chief princes. I instantly thought of that because they essentially did have princes in that time of the 9 princes who saw themselves as higher ranked than others. Long story short, imagine Game of Thrones on steroids, and you get the 9 princes.
Yeah.
Pretty much they jammed take all the seasons of Game of Thrones, jam it into one season, and that's 9 princes.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
It was pretty bloody.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right.
Not a lot of winners, so
No. Well, still no. But get back on track. So, regardless, Gabriel may not be the only hint at this notion that not all angels are in the presence of God, which again we're going to touch more on later. But there is one further note of interest when referring to Gabriel. Unlike Michael, the Bible does, although be it very vaguely, mention Gabriel's appearance in human form. First in Daniel 8:15 and Daniel 9:20, where he is described as a man to offer clarity to Daniel's vision. The other in Luke 1:11 and Luke 1:26, where he announces the birth of John the Baptist and Jesus. Besides being mentioned specifically as a man, despite how many Hollywood sources seem to want to dispute for some reason, because so many of them try to depict Gabriel as a girl. I don't know why. He's very clearly denoted as a man,
so
but
also
whatever.
be mentioned that in the previous Daniel quote of Daniel chapter 10, the angel he was speaking to also was described as a man.
Yes. Like I said, only one occasion are female angels mentioned, and well, we covered that. But Gabriel is hinted at possessing a fearsome presence. such as can be seen in Daniel 8:15-19, which says, "And when he came, I was frightened and fell on my face," which I believe is up on the slide on YouTube. And in Luke 1:26, where Gabriel's first statement to Mary was, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God." So both these verses, while they do not directly say it, indicate that the angel Gabriel, even in human form, is fearsome to behold. A sense, feeling, or vibe, if you will, which most people can relate to. I mean, if asked, a majority of the populace will state they have met an individual who made them feel uneasy, someone who just emitted a sense of strength, foreboding, and power, especially in the case of battle hardened soldiers who you can tell have been through a lot. And based on the aforementioned scriptures, I believe Gabriel, even as a human, gives off this sense of power, which
Well,
is why for those of you watching on YouTube, I have a picture of the actor who played uh, Ragnar in Vikings, because he gives us a rather fearsome presence. And I honestly was debating between grabbing a picture of him or Alan Richardson from Reacher, just because, again, there are some people who just give this sense of, yeah, I could rip you apart without trying. Like, you guys have met people like that, right?
well, have you looked up what Gabriel the name mean?
No, actually, I tried to look it up. I couldn't find anything very helpful.
God is my strong man, or
Yeah,
God is
that
my
was what it
hero.
was. Yeah, that's what it was, which
Um,
didn't give much.
derived from two, mainly derived from the ending. I'm it shows the pronounce Geva, and I'm probably butchering that. You know, anyone who speaks Hebrew, go easy on me. I'm just looking up what each individual would, and it's going that part mean the ending means strong man or hero, and the beginning is of course God.
Yeah, like I said, like that's the thing with angel names; they don't help a lot.
One other thing I did not know, in Islamic tradition, he is the angel who dictated the Quran to Muhammad.
Yes, he is, which we're gonna actually look a little bit further into, because in in Islam, Gabriel is superior to Michael, which has an interesting story behind it, and we're gonna get into that later on in this series. Uh, Speaking of which, Zed, have you ever met someone when you meet them, they just give off this sense of power, foreboding, or someone who has been through, like, you can tell he's more powerful than he looks?
Um, maybe if I have, I don't remember when.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about. You get a certain vibe
No,
from
I know
people.
exactly what you're talking about.
But yeah, so that's might be what the Archangel Gabriel kind of gives off here and what they're describing. But regardless, I wanted to focus on this air of power and strength associated with angels, because it's going to come up again later in the series. And I do want to call back onto this. Now, with that said, we can now move on to what I know my co hosts have been looking forward to, and that is what angels really look like. And as it has been previously stated, the Bible primarily focuses on the history of the Judeo Christian people. But there are verses that go heavily into the physical description of some angels, which we will look into now, starting with the most famous of the angels described, the cherubim. Don't switch slides yet. Um, Most have heard of cherubs, and as such, they have been depicted numerous times in art, along with angels in general. In art, angels are normally depicted as graceful and beautiful humanoids, with cherubs in particular being depicted as cute, cuddly, chubby babies with wings, safe and non threatening, which, as we are about to see, is nowhere close to how they are described in the Bible. The sweet babies with wings are, in fact, go ahead, multi headed and multi winged horror shows. Our first in depth look at the cherub comes from Ezekiel 1:5 through 11. Here, Ezekiel describes them as having four faces: that of a man, a lion on the right side, an ox on the left side, and finally, an eagle's face, which is presumed to be on the back of the face of the man. However, Ezekiel does not, in fact, clearly state the position of the eagle's face. As if the four heads were not abstract enough, those beings are also in possession of four wings, two covering their bodies and two are outstretched. Their legs were straight with feet like the soles of a calf, which gleamed like burnished bronze, and their bodies seemed to be burning coals of fire. An interesting side note: most who know the biblically accurate descriptions of angels know that these beings are supposed to be full of eyes, which the Bible does say, but not in the same passage. Ezekiel actually splits his accounts with the first in Ezekiel 1 through 28, where he gets the fiery, multi headed, and winged being described. However, it's not until Ezekiel 10 where he mentions them being full of eyes. And it is, in fact, in this section, Ezekiel 10, where he first clarifies that they are, in fact, cherubs. So I find the split a bit interesting. I'm not exactly sure why that was done, but that is done. And this type of angel is given the most details as to its appearance and nature than any other angel mentioned in the Bible. Now, there may actually be a reason for this, which, interesting enough, may have various archaeological evidence to support it. Now, to understand this, we first need to understand what the Bible says about cherub, not only regard to their appearance, but their responsibilities as well. According to biblical canon, cherubs are one of, if not the highest ranking angels in the angelic hierarchy. This ranking dispute will be addressed later on in this series. As told in Ezekiel, four cherubs support the throne of God, meaning they are very close to God. Cherubims also appear to be guardians of holy places, such as the Garden of Eden, temples, and even the Holy Spirit. While never directly stated to be the guardians of heaven's forces, the image of cherub have adorned such holy places, most famously adorning the lid of the Ark of the Covenant. And as told, sorry, I've lost my place. It's famously adoring the lid of the Ark of Covenant. And you can go ahead and change change slides. And as told, the verse says, "And you shall make an outing cover of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide. You shall make 2 cherubim of gold. Make them of hammered work at the 2 ends of the atoning cover. Make 1 cherubim at one end and 1 cherub at the other end. You shall make the cherubim of one piece with the atoning cover at its 2 ends, and the cherubim shall have their wings spread upward, covering the atoning cover with their wings and facing one another. Their faces of the cherubim are to be turned towards the atoning cover." Now, for this study, there are 2 points of interest in this. That the passage does not describe what cherubim look like. Second, that this passage was written before the detailed description provided by Ezekiel 1:5. Now, what this would seem to imply is that cherubim were angels that mankind were fairly familiar with, which makes sense if we're going off biblical history, as in Genesis states that cherubim were placed at the entrance of the Garden of Eden, meaning they would have been the last angels seen by Adam and Eve when they were banished. So it makes sense that their early descendants would have at least an idea of what cherubim looked like. At least that's what I got out of this. What do you guys think?
If I'm not mistaken, wasn't the angel put in charge? Yep, directly say after he drove Maine out of the place on the east side, he of the Garden of Eden, cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life.
Yes. So, like I said, according to the Bible, if we're going off biblical history, the last angel Adam and Eve would have seen would have been a cherubim or a cherub. I've never known if I should use cherub or cherubim.
It's
Like,
been pronounced both ways, so you're
it's
safe
been
either
pronounced
way.
both ways. Like, we just had a scripture was pronounced both ways. Like, so I've never like. I just like to say cherub because it's like easier to say. I always feel like I'm saying cherubim wrong. So, but sorry, that's a side tangent note.
What I
But
find interesting is with the Ezekiel description of the cherubim. Um, we know that angels can take human forms
yes,
because they often do.
yes,
I find it very interesting. This is one of the few times they're described in a semi-human, semi-bestial form. Because if I'm not mistaken, this is also the passage where they start to describe some angels that have wheels.
yes, which we're gonna look into later on. This is all going to come together, and we're going to describe something, and we're going to mention a very fun piece of obnoxious history just for the fun of it, which I won't spoil here.
I do recommend people who like to look up things on YouTube. Look up, I think it's just called Biblically Accurate Angel. It's like someone went through the trouble of making a 3D rendering of the angel as described in Ezekiel.
There's quite a few of them, actually, and they're all terrifying.
Oh, they're a freaking nightmare. Like, just think Cthulhu type Leviathan like creature that you can look at, and it's like looking it. That's how I always imagine those definition of angels. It's like looking at at like a Cthulhu type what do you call those horrors that you see and that people like to surmise with space of just humans cannot fathom.
Sorry, the word
The
that's
t-
coming to me is uncanny valley, but that's not
yeah,
what you're
it's
looking
not
for.
Uncanny Valley, but it's similar to
I
that.
know what you mean,
You,
but the word's not coming to me.
yeah, it's not coming to me right now because that's what I instantly start thinking of whenever I read that passage because it's like
Honestly,
some
I think of raw, unbridled power. Like looking at almost pure power and energy. That like if conscious energy almost. Like that's what I kind of think of. If it somehow took a form, like it would be
Eldritch.
freaking
That's
terrifying.
what I'm looking for. Eldritch horror.
Yeah, that works.
That's what I'm looking because it sounds like some type of eldritch horror. Because you're describing multiple creatures smashed together, multiple body parts that doesn't seem like they should fit smashed together, covered in organ, in this case eyes. Like you just think how can something like that function?
Right? Especially when we get to the wheels. The wheels are going to be an interesting look,
Yes.
to say the least. Good points, but oddly enough, the Bible may not be the only source we have that demonstrates mankind's early familiarity with this specific type of angel. Go ahead and switch. The evidence in question is various archaeological reliefs. To start, let's take a look at the winged genies, who are possibly some of the oldest depiction of deities on Earth and a reoccurring motif in Assyrian iconography. Which, for those of you watching on YouTube, this is why I suggest watching on YouTube because one of them is shown. Now, the first example we have here is this relief from the northern wall of the palace of King Sargon at Dur Sharukin. which I probably butchered, but which dates roughly from 713 to 716 BC. Now, what I want to bring attention to is the four wings possessed by the deity. Now, to be clear, there is a lot of symbolism in this relief. The pine cone, for instance, and the buckets representing fertilization of life giving crops. They were often pointing at the king, showing that the king was the emissary of these beings, which were considered gods. This is also a favorite of the ancient alien people, who incorrectly claim these reliefs are Sumerian when they are in fact Akkadian, but when have they ever cared about reality or facts? And also claim they are ancient astronauts because of things like the wristwatches, which for those of you who can see on YouTube, the small bracelets they're wearing with circles, which according to ancient alien people are wristwatches,
Why
which
would they have
they are.
two?
Yeah, why do they have two? In fact, on some of them, there's also one on their forehead. So, shockingly, Zed, are you ready to be shocked by this information? They're not wristwatches. Does that shock you?
I mean, aren't they
Zed?
just...
No?
I was trying to think of a dumb delayed reaction joke, but I couldn't think of one. That's how unimpressed I am at this
Oh,
interpretation by stupid people.
Aren't they
Yeah,
just
I was going to say, were you
bracelets?
just that shocked? Huh?
Aren't there just bracelets that have been shaped that way? Because if I'm not
Okay,
mistaken...
Yes,
so
there are bracelets that just have things like that.
believe it or not, this is actually well known as it's actually a symbol for the goddess of fertility, Ishtar. In fact, it's a symbol which can be seen on the Babylon gates. It's if you get a higher resolution picture, the circular part is actually a type of flower, which again is a sign of Ishtar. So again, the ancient alien people don't know what they're talking about, but my point is there's a lot of symbolism here. However, the wings now, like I said, with symbolism, the wings do have an explanation as well, stating that most people think they come from pollinating animals like bees, who, yes, mainly do have four wings. Now, the symbolism is not a bad explanation, but there are issues, and the primary one I have is the four wings. Now, to be clear, these are four wings. It's not a weird angle like some of the Egyptian hieroglyphs that we're looking at, where we're actually just seeing two wings and a weird angle. No, these things do have four wings. I looked this up very hard just to be sure. So, from the relief, you can see they're very clearly birds' wings and not insect wings, which well, to be fair, insect wings would possibly look pretty silly if you put them on a relief like this. I mean, four insect wings would look a little weird. But why the need for four wings? Two would be easier, and in some cases, would actually make more sense, such as in our next example of an ancient Assyrian relief from the, go ahead and switch, from the palace of Ashurnasirpal II. I'm not even going to pretend to have pronounced that right. Now, as you can see, this one bears an eagle's head, but still retains the four wings, which, again, why? Two would work, especially if it's meant to represent pollinating birds. So I guess the question is, if this was based on a cherub seen by men, could time wear down the details of these beings? So what do you think? Is it possible that these four wings could be representing what spreaded people from all the way back to Adam and Eve could be seen as cherub features? Again, there's no wrong answer. Feel free to answer whatever.
I mean, okay, I'm not, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of this is the Mesopotamian mythos.
These are specifically Assyrian. These are not Sumerian, which are earlier. These are Assyrian. Because
Yeah,
that's the mistake ancient alien people get wrong. These are old, don't get me wrong. But They are not the oldest. They're not Sumerian, which is the oldest, which ancient alien people love to refer to.
Because if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to think of the because a lot of ancient cultures have winged figures in it.
Yes, and we're gonna look at some more of those too. I'm focused on these specifically because they have 4 wings, as cherub were said to have 4 wings. And actually, real quick, Zed, as the non-religious one of us, what do you think about these things actually in possession of very distinctly 4 wings? Like, it's kind of odd, right?
Um, it is normally when I think of any depiction of anything related to angels or angelic presence or whatever, there's always either 2 or 6.
Yes, but that's more in modern things, not in ancient ones.
Okay,
Okay,
because I don't know much about ancient, so that's the only thing that's getting me on the
Yeah,
4 is I
and
can't think of any.
so I
we
was
will
looking.
take a look at 6 as well, but we're specifically looking at cherubs, which are specifically stated to be 4 wings. And
Okay, see, I don't know much
remember,
about cherubs, that's why.
yeah, no, but you see why I'm bringing attention to this is because these are again from 713 to 716 BC, and
Okay.
you can definitely see some similarities with the descriptions of cherubs,
Yeah.
which I find interesting. And it's going to get more interesting later on. But again, as a non-religious person, I was just kind of wondering, like, you find it kind of interesting with the description of cherubs versus these reliefs.
Yeah.
Yep. And Shadow R Fox, did you want to say something more? I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off.
No, I was looking it up because wow, Wikipedia got that wrong. The naming the one you have on screen as Penzuzu in association with Sumerian.
The one that's currently on screen? No,
Mm-hmm.
that's not Punzunzu.
Because no, I know Sumerian and Babylonian gods do have wings, but I don't
Yeah.
think I don't believe any of them have 4 wings. Only 2.
Not that I could find.
As far as I know, they only have 2.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was
Again,
trying to remember.
yeah. Again, not as I could find. But yeah, so moving on. Now, possibly we do have more examples of this possible cherubim relation, such as the next slide, which is going to show a couple different one. Now, going from the far right, which is actually what Shadow R Fox just mentioned, is Pazuzu, which is a Mesopotamian personification of the southern wind. Now, he held kingship over Libu wind demons and was considered both a destructive and dangerous wind, also repellent to other demons. He's one who safeguards the home from influence. So, from the demonic influence. So, again, we see this protection aspect, which is denoted with cherub, who are said to have been guardians, protectors. And that's why they're adorned with temples. And again, we see animal face and 4 wings. Again, going back all the way to Mesopotamia. Now, I do want to mention on a side note, just because it was actually surprisingly difficult to find a statue of Pazuzu that didn't have a gigantic penis on it.
Isn't he one of the fertility
Well, again, I
gods?
said personification of the southern wind, but still, like, do you know how hard it was to find one without a huge erection?
I mean, wasn't he primarily used when people were trying to bear kids, so get pregnant, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, but still.
It's like that Egyptian god with the same association.
Yeah, there's no point to that. I just wanted to mention it. Now, other than that, going over to the next slide with, well, not the next slide, I mean the next picture, which shows again another four-winged deity on top of a lion. Now, if I remember correctly, this is a bas relief from the Fortress of Van, which is a winged avatar of Kahaldi, bearing the sun symbol on its crown and holding a leaf from the sacred tree of life. In the other hand, a vessel that has blessed water, and as a symbol of power, it stands on a lion, and it's also called Haldi. Now, another one that I find, which I did actually find particularly interesting because I stumbled upon the final image on here quite by accident. This is actually Kahunam, whatever, Kahunam, which is the winged ram god from the temple of Hathor at Dendra. And as you can see, it's clearly Egyptian. But interestingly enough, is anyone who knows about Egyptian mythology and Egyptian hieroglyphs and everything else knows that Egyptians often changed a lot of things. Now, one one of the aspects they changed is that their characters were molded. They changed looks and various other things. If you take a look at this winged ram god, what do you see? You see one of the earliest depictions of Egyptian gods, and you see once again these four wings, which would later on go to have only two wings, and then later on have wings incorporated with their arms, much like birds. But we see in some of the early ones, actually, they're gods having four wings, which is not greatly shown, but again, it's interesting
Should
that
be
we see these things.
should be mentioned with Egyptian gods, their appearance change with each dynasty
Yes.
almost, and it's
Yes,
very
it does.
typical from one dynasty to another to change the appearance of a god to fit so that you can give more legitimacy to your reign, or in some cases, even destroy or remove images of another god that a pharaoh or king was associated with to take away legitimacy from their claim.
Yes.
This is why you also get like whole lost period of Egyptian history because they would literally wipe them from the books.
Yeah, like their pharaoh Anakun, who tried to change everything
Gods, yep.
yeah, he was
The new dynasty or something like that is what he called his age, or and he tried to make himself essentially the sun god.
yes, which worked out so well, and he was the father of Tutankhamun, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I believe so. He was he caused a lot of lost history because of him. I know that much.
Yes, and he's also known for being one of the oddest looking Egyptian pharaohs out there, which people to this day are still trying to figure out if that's what he actually looked like or if it was just a representation of what he looked like or he was trying to make some point. They've never been sure. Which well, I I don't know. It was weird. Like the whole period of that time was very very strange, and he was not well liked. In fact, when he died, they basically tried to destroy everything he had built and had. So,
Oh,
you
that
know,
was it. The he formed his religion around the solar god Aten to go with his name, Akhenaten, Amenhotep, yeah,
yeah,
Pharaoh Akhenaten, oh
Pharaoh
Amenhotep
Anakin.
the fourth, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Which, uh, oh well. Well, moving on, we do have a few more, and once again, you can see. Hold on a second. Lost my place.
Find it very interesting that a lot of the Mesopotamian full-winged gods are gods of fertility, and lo and behold, the first mention of a cherubim in the Bible is guarding the Garden of Eden, which would have been the pinnacle of a garden of fertility.
Yes. No, definitely. And again, we get inscriptions because, as seen, the two stone statues here are from in the inscriptions of Menneus, king of Ararat. There were descriptions of protectors known as the Holies, which were creatures such as sphinxes, griffins, and other anthropomorphic beings, most often with eagles' heads. Now, these mystical beings served as protectors and intermediaries between humans and the divine sphere. So again, we kind of see this link with humanity, and again, you see the buckets and the same symbolism being used here, which, yeah, fascinating to say the least. Like we keep seeing this theme throughout, and especially in the last two images, which are actually motifs of more or less the same thing at different angles. Which sorry, I'm losing my place with my notes because there were surprisingly a large amount of different beings that had a strange similarity when it came to angelic beings. Now, these are called the Urartian Tree of Life, which was a sacred religious symbol in the kingdom of Armenia Highland, and they were depicted with a figure on either side making offerings. Now, this was believed to originate in the 9th century BC. They believed the center of the universe was located at the crown of the tree or the column closest to the sky. So, once again, what do we see? These beings with 4 distinct wings. Clearly humanoid, but also, to be fair, all of them have muscular feet and none of them have the soles of a calf. But we do constantly see this 4-wing motive, which I guess, to be fair, that would be one of the more distinctive features along with the faces. But I think the wings would be the feature that kind of sticks out the most, especially if they're made of fire, like it's described in Ezekiel. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Hmm.
Which,
Just
also, sorry, Shadow Arfox, I asked you a message in the chat. Did you see it?
oh no.
Yeah, real quick. Sorry, I forgot something.
I don't believe I can do that in post.
Gotcha. Okay, that would work. So that's my fault. I apologize. Um. Anyway, but yeah. So these are some of them. So why am I bringing this up? Like I said, these are Avatar Kali, Sphinxes of Arat. Now, of course, all of these are interesting, but there, of course, is no clear link between these deities and cherub. But there may be a link to the Jewish people, which will be seen with our final cherubim archaeological example. And this is what the final image would be, which is actually just a very small black stone. And it's a small seal from the Jewish First Temple period, discovered near the southern wall of the Temple Mount from about 27,000 years ago. It is a rare seal inscribed with Paleo Hebrew script reading for Ezer, son of Hashi Alakua. So basically, it's a religious marker seal, which does show a link to the Jewish people, considering it was found near the Jewish temple. And it may show a connection. Now, the debate, of course, is the significance of it. How much of a connection is this? Like, again, what do you guys think? Does this show a clear connection with that and the Jewish people? Does it show that ideas may have been borrowed, or does it show that perhaps all of these cultures are trying to basically depict something that was seen or passed down that was seen from stories of old?
I think there's too many similarities between, but I notice how a lot of this is all in the Middle Eastern, but at the same time, if I remember Native Americans and Mesoamerican lore, they also have a lot of lore with winged creatures as
Yes,
well.
and we will be looking at those as well.
And I find it very interesting how multiple cultures around the whole planet have a shared um mythos of multiple creatures with multiple wings being either great figures of power or guardians.
Yes, that's what I found interesting too, because that's the thing. A lot of these cultures have shared aspects. Like every culture on Earth has a flood myth, a myth of a great and terrible flood. And now we see that a lot of these cultures, especially located in one particular area, had these four-winged deities that all served as protectors and guardians in some aspect. Even with uh, Pazuzu, as much as he was a well-endowed fertility god, apparently, he was still meant to be a protector to chase away demons. So we kind of see this repeating theme. We have different elements that are added on or subtracted, which makes sense because we kind of see that in the way stories are told today, that they'll take a story and add elements and everything else. I mean, Hollywood is notorious for this, taking original stories and adding elements for entertainment or for cultural purposes. We say that in everything, and even in Snow White, which yeah, let's not get too far into that. But again, it's the whole point of course, monster investigations is that these were probably based off something. It's not just imagination, especially when it's shared with so many different cultures. So the real question is the basis. And is it just a shared imagination, or are all these cultures subtly depicting something that was seen by someone years ago and passed down until it was final before written word? What do you think?
Um, Tough call because you could make the argument that it was passed down when all the continents was basically, well, Pangea,
Right.
because there's a lot to show that a lot of the cultures was kind of all in the same location before we all started migrating to different locations. And even if you don't subscribe to Pangea, um, there's plenty of places where we was kind of linked, such as Alaska and Russia, for
Yeah, and
people to just walk
most people
across.
don't at least admit that there was a continent, that there was a spread of people as people started to spread out.
Oh, and I did manage to get that image on there. I don't know if
Yeah, no, I do see that. I appreciate it. Thanks. It's my fault. It's been a long week.
I didn't know I could add images while being in presenter mode, but now I can. I do.
Yes, and I appreciate it. By the way, just say that seal, that is zoom because that thing is tiny. Like it doesn't even take up the palm of your hand. It is very small. But again, I wanted to show it because it does show a link to, the Jewish people and these exact creatures. Because that's definitely not a, well, maybe it is a picture of a Jewish cherubim, or maybe it's one of these, or maybe it's a shared story. And also, I wanted to show this because, again, Zed, as our non religious person, what do you think? Does this show kind of a link between these cultures, or do you think it's just one big coincidence? And again, feel free to be completely honest.
No, I definitely think most things that you can find that have commonalities like that probably do show a link where probably some sort of drift or convergence, something like that, would have been happening. I definitely think it's more of a possible link than just a complete random coincidence. But very few things that find in the world happen to be full coincidence.
Yeah, that I agree with. But still, I wanted to. That's why I wanted to. I know we probably took more than an hour on this, but I wanted to show this kind of link as it's more fresh in mind. Because if I split this up with some of the evidence and everything, it would be a little haphazardly, and you couldn't see some of the links given with these cultures and these symbolisms going in, and how it's kind of spread out, and how the Bible doesn't is not the only one that kind of mentions these four winged creatures. But I wanted to show that, and that will actually come to the end of part 2. Now, in part 3, we are actually not done with Cherub. We have a few more things to cover, but that can wait. As what we have left will probably take up at least half of the next episode we do on this. But it will definitely be interesting, to say the least, because, like I said, cherubs are the most described creatures in the Bible, and we're actually going to cover why it's disputed about whether or not they are the highest ranking of angels, which should be interesting to say the least. With that said, is there anything that you guys would like to add?
I'm subscribing to the next Lovecraftian need to be about angels because screw Cthulhu coming out of the ocean. Imagine if we had a biblically accurate angel rise out of the ocean.
I mean, in Revelation, it does talk about an angel rising from a dark pit. That would probably be terrifying.
I seem to recall Revelation have a bunch of stories about dragons rising from the sea and stuff like that.
Yes, it does. Though usually the seven-headed dragon is a depiction of Satan, and also one is a depiction of the church. There's a lot in Revelation which we may cover later on. Actually, Revelation could be its own freaking video.
It's a fever dream.
It really is. Like, holy crap. But regardless, that's our first look at non-biblical archaeological evidence of angels. Is really what I wanted to touch on in this series the most, is that there is more to angels than just Bible story, which I thought was kind of interesting because a lot of people don't really think about that or even really know it, and even fewer have tried to find it. Especially considering that, thanks to, well, I can't even blame Hollywood for this. Thanks to modern art, most people think cherubs look like sweet little babies.
Well, that's primarily, and I didn't know if you were gonna get into that then. Oh, in the next video of that's primarily due to the Greeks.
I wasn't going to get into this video. We may touch upon it in the next video, but I'm not going to lie. If I was going to touch upon it all, it'd be very lightly. So if you want to touch upon that here, feel free.
To give a quick and dirty, it's mainly due to I believe it was Eros, if I'm remembering his name correctly.
Yes, it's Eros.
Who, for all intents and purposes, this is literally Cupid. Eros is literally, what would become modern day Cupid. Literally described as the Greek god. Well, I think he was the Greek god of directly like passion, if I recall correctly, was the direct one. But essentially, he's no. Let me put it this way: he shot arrows that when they would hit people, they would cause people fall in love. And he shot arrows of lead that when hit people would cause them to fall into hate. Sound familiar?
A little bit.
Straight up, it's Cupid. And
no, it is. It's where Cupid came from.
And he's described as a very beautiful figure with wings.
Who somehow became a baby.
The baby come from the fact that I think he is Aphrodite's son, and
Yes.
one of the son that she dot upon very dearly. She loves she often regard him as one of her most beloved sons. And
Yes, and actually, we'll touch upon this a bit later on. Apparently, he actually there were four of them, and he was one of four
yes,
brothers.
yes, no, he had several siblings. He was one of the favorites.
Yes,
And
which
because he was this is my assumption, is because he was one of the favorite, he's often seen in her company. He's oft in some description, he's regarded with childlike appearances because he's directly under her company. In one story with Adonis, um he is actually jealous of Adonis because Aphrodite referred to how Adonis is so beautiful, and she have to comfort him and tell him, but she find him, her son, more beautiful than this mortal, which is how she get stung by his arrow and fall in love with Adonis, a mortal. But that's a whole nother mythos right there.
yeah, and doesn't even remotely scream Norman Bates, Mama's Boy, or Severe
Oh no, he's
Oedipus.
supposed to be completely mama boy. If you look up his mythos of when he fall in love with a mortal and want to marry her, his mother get in the way and thinks that her son is too good for a human to marry,
Yeah, no, I
despite her
remember this
having
story.
a human lover. So,
Yeah, no, I remember the story. Interesting story, man. Those Greeks love their tragedies.
so it's he's very much seen as a mama boy, and I think that whole aspect of him got overblown, and that what led to the whole baby Cupid thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, you can dig more into it, but at a surface level, that's always been my easiest understanding of it. Is it's just he was very very close to his mother, a very much a mama boy Olympian, and I think that just kind of stuck with him.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. All right. I think that's everything. Zed, anything you'd like to add? Are you
He's look
thinking Zed, or like
he's
are
looking
we
for a
cutting
joke.
out?
No, I said I didn't have anything
Oh,
else.
okay. I thought he was
Oh,
looking for a joke about Cupid.
No,
uh,
no, I said
I'm
I didn't
sorry.
have anything else. I guess my mic didn't pick that up or something.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right. Well, then with that, I hope you guys found this in-depth look at possible evidence of cherub interesting. Yes, no?
Yeah, no, I one of these days I gotta get the biblically accurate angels images on here as well.
That's going to be fun. We might have a chance to do it in a later video. All right. And with that, join us next time. We're probably going to go back to another monster so we don't get too burnt out on angels, but we will return to the subject as angels because, as I've said before, we've got so much to cover. Like, we're not even close to halfway done. With that said, I'm Archimage,
Shadow or Fox.
And Zed.
and we'll see you next time.
See ya.